Alright, just to extend off of our ions video, we're going to talk specifically about certain metal cations. Alright, if you look at the periodic table, it kind of looks like this. You got this long column in the middle, or on the sides, right? And then in the middle here, there's this long section, okay, of metals, and those are called transition metals. Okay? And transition metals are the hardest to work with when it comes to ions because their charge is not always the same. Okay? If you're on this section over here, it's always the same. If you're over here, they're always the same. But here, they are variable. Different elements can have different charges. And that's really confusing and frustrating to people who are just learning about this. So I'm going to take this video to kind of make sure that we're covering it. Okay? And so when they have different charges, that means they have differing oxidation states. Okay, and an oxidation state is just what their charge is. So, for instance, +1 is an oxidation state. -2 is an oxidation state. All right, it just means that they can have different charges. All right, so we're going to deal with these middle metals. And there's some few rules that you have to make sure that you are aware of when you're dealing with them. Okay? So in our video, our example is going to be iron again. Okay? And iron has 3 common oxidation states. Okay? The first one is just regular iron. Okay? So just regular old iron. Okay? There's no charge on it, right? So the charge is 0. Okay? And, alright, it's just the regular elemental iron, right? Because elemental iron should always have a charge of 0. Okay? And then iron has 2 more oxidation states that it can when it becomes an ion. There's Fe2+ and Fe3+. Okay? So they have 2 other ones. Alright, in this case, the charge is +2. In 3, it's +3. And this has to deal with which electrons it decides to give up, because iron has a choice. It can give up a certain set of electrons, or it can give up a different set of electrons, and that changes which oxidation state it's in. Okay? And so these 3 oxidation states can all be found on the planet, right? So there's, just regular old iron you can find in the ground. Iron 2+ is in a lot of oxygen-based compounds, like, for instance, like FeO. Okay? Or, in Fe3, there's a couple different iron compounds that have that in there. So, like, you got FeCl3, there's Fe2O3. Different sorts of things have different ions, and they're useful for making different things. Okay? The one major thing you have to do is make sure that when you're writing them out, when you're naming a compound, okay, that you use the correct way of writing it. Okay? When you have regular elemental iron, it's just iron. You write it out. I have iron. Okay? But let's say we were going to write out iron oxide here. Well, because iron oxide has a 2+, right, that's a 2+ oxidation state, you have to tell us which iron you have. Okay? This one has iron 2, so we say it's iron 2 oxide. Okay? Over here we have the same thing, right? We have iron and oxygen. Okay? But this one is different. It is iron 3 oxide. And as you can see, this difference makes a huge difference in the formula of the chemical you're dealing with. Okay? So if you hand someone a bottle of iron oxide, and you don't tell them whether it's iron 2 oxide or iron 3 oxide, they're not going to know what you're handing them. So it's really important to make sure that you specify with these metals in the middle which one you have when you're naming them. It makes a big difference. It goes a long way. Helps other people out. Okay? The last thing I'm going to talk about is there are 3 transition metals that have the same charge no matter what all the time. Okay? There's always exceptions to rules. This is no exception. Okay? So we've got 3 that have an exception. That is silver, zinc, and aluminum. Okay? Silver is always +1. Zinc is always +2. And aluminum is always +3. Those 3 are transition metals that have a constant charge. Okay? The rest of them, though, have different ones. Okay? Some of them just have 2, some of them have 3, some of them have 4, Okay, one of my favorite ones, manganese, has 7 oxidation states. It's awesome. And it's really cool because it can make really cool colors if you change the oxidation states of manganese. That's probably for a different time. Anyway, okay, you can have a wide range of oxidation states, and they can do all sorts of different things. So we just want to make sure that we know, right, that these can change. They're variable, so they can have different ones, like Fe2 and Fe3. Okay? And that when you're naming them, you have to make sure you specify which one you have, otherwise it causes some complications. Other than that, once you get used to dealing with them, they're really easy to work with.